This episode of Football Friends with Ben and Steph is brought to you by Unique Opal Mine. Based in Adelaide but shipping worldwide, if you or your partner loves opals, Unique Opal Mine is the place to shop. On top of that, they also create and design custom diamond engagement rings and recreate any old jewellery into new pieces. Both Stefan and Ben have used Tim, walking into the shop not having a clue about diamonds, walking out diamond experts. Head to uniqueopalmine.com to hear more or visit them in store in Rundle Mall.
Our mine tonight, play per over.
Depends. Will your friend, the footballer, be there?
Oh, friend! Football friend!
Oh, what a superb goal! Stephen Moore, that is extraordinary from Ben Garuccio.
You're listening to episode 5 of Football Friends with Ben Garuccio and Stephen Mork. In this episode, the Duke of Western Sydney and the King of Machida, Mitchell Duke, joins us as he and the Socceroos prepare to begin their 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign. Sharing stories of his humble beginnings and the illustrious career that followed, enjoy an hour-long special with our football friend who had trials at West Ham that did actually happen. And of course, the boys recap another crazy weekend in the A-League men's. All that and more coming up on Football Friends.
Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Football Friends with Ben and Steph. We're back for another week. It's been a huge week in the A-League and I'm joined here by my mate, Steph. Welcome to the show. Thanks, Ben. It's good to be back for another episode. We've had a tough week over here for me. We've wrapped up the season. I've been packing up the house, not sure where I'm going to be next season, so got to pack up just in case. We drew our last game. I wasn't involved. My hamstring was a bit sore, so I didn't want to risk it when we were playing for nothing. But yeah, it's been a hectic week over here, and fortunately, I got to watch all the A-League games as well, which was great. What about yourself? How was the week for you? Yeah, it was obviously not the best result for us, and it's been a bit of a theme the last few weeks, which is never good. And obviously, we started the season well. We've lost the last 3. So it is still early days. The league is still quite tight, but obviously you want to be getting up to the best start as possible. But I think we can basically just get straight into the A-League wrap for the week.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! It's one of the great
First game of the week was Melbourne victory versus the Phoenix, 1-1 draw, probably the most one-sided 1-1 draw you'll ever see. What were your thoughts on that game? Yeah, victory were really strong, as you said. I don't think Phoenix even had a shot on target, so it's pretty crazy when you walk away from a game with a point and a goal to get your point, and you haven't even had a shot on target. So it shows the dominance of victory. It was pretty similar to the Adelaide game, actually, where victory came out, the blocks flying. They didn't take their chances. They obviously got their one goal, but they need to be a bit more ruthless, and I think that's something that I'm sure they're going to be working on. But for me, they're still the team to beat. I know they've drawn the last couple, but they look the most dangerous. They look very good in defence, midfield, the front players. I think their combination play will only get better. You've still got good quality players on the bench, and I guess for Wellington on the other side, it's a point away from home. There's probably 2 games against Western Sydney now and Victory, who are 2 of the better teams away from home. They've got points in maybe games they didn't deserve to. So it's probably a really positive thing for the players to feel. What about yourself? What did you think about the game? Yeah, as I said, I thought it was quite one-sided. But yeah, for me, I agree with what you said. Victory are looking good right now, and it's pretty crazy. Like last year, they looked like a completely different team. They've got still quite a lot of the same players as last season, but they just seem to have like a really good understanding right now. And obviously they've added Arzani, but I think someone who's sort of blown under the radar is Velupile, because probably everyone's talking about Fornaroli, Arzani, and no one's really speaking that much about Velupile. But for me, he's been unbelievable these first 4 games. He's been super dangerous, and he's sort of not set up the first goal, but he plays that really smart ball back into Guerrier, and then Guerrier puts it across for Teague. So they're definitely looking good at the moment. And I reckon Amy Park's going to be a pretty tough place to go for a lot of teams this year. So they've got the fans back, which is good. And, when Victory get that, they are probably, some of the best fans in the league with the numbers that they can bring to games. So I think it's good. It's good for the league to see Victory back up there. And no, it's good.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think they should only keep building on their attendances. The fans should keep coming, and that leads us on to our next game down in was it Ballarat you were playing in?
Down in the Rat. Yeah, it was.
You can talk us about that.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of a strange. Like for us, probably the one game this year, I'd say like we really dominated in terms of possession. I think watching the game back, there was one stage in the first half where we had, I think it was nearly like 80% possession in that first half. So it did feel quite comfortable in that first half. Obviously, you can never be comfortable in a game, and it's never easy. But it definitely felt like a game where we were sort of controlling the tempo and the way the game was being played, and we played in their half a lot, which was good. And obviously, we did have a couple of good chances. Obviously, we had the goal that was ruled out, but we had another one with Noah Botic. We had another one with Pena that got sort of blocked, and then another offside goal in the second half as well. So yeah, there were a few chances in there, but at the end of the day, football is a funny game, and they went down the other end probably once or twice in the first half, and they were able to get their goal. And then after that, you're 1-0 down, you're playing at home, and obviously we'd lost the last two before that, so it starts to get, a little bit, not shaky, but you start to get that nervousness a little bit and feeling like you need a score. And I thought in the second half, we still created a bit, but we weren't probably as good, and we didn't control the game as much as in the first half. And yeah, we weren't able to get that goal, which, look, I think some games you walk away from, you think, we played really poorly. And we didn't even look like scoring. I think in this game, we did have some decent chances. Obviously, you have 2 goals chalked off, but you still lose the game 1-0, which is disappointing. Yeah. What were your thoughts from the outside? Obviously, for me, it's always a little bit different speaking about my games because I'm obviously playing in them.
Yeah, no, well, if I'm being completely honest, I had a bad sleep the night before, so I fell asleep from about the 30th minute until the 70th minute. But in the first 30, you guys were all over them, and I guess the one thing was like you created a few half chances here or there, but it just didn't seem like it was that fluid a lot of the play, and Newcastle seemed pretty comfortable. They weren't great on the ball. As you said, the possession stats would have been in your favor, but yeah, it just didn't really feel like a game where there was going to be a goal. Obviously AP scored a pretty scrappy goal for the Jets, and it's just one of those ones where I guess they're probably happy to sit back, especially once they score. They don't need to go forward, and they don't need to score, and they've got a new coach who's probably happy on the road, take the 3 points. And for you guys, probably in that last when I woke up, especially the last 10 minutes, that's when it looked like you guys had a little bit more urgency. The young boy Grimaldi, I think it was, that came on. He looked, he was only on for a little bit, but he looked really sharp. I think it looked in the first half like, players were kind of a bit hesitant, not really going at the Jets. So it was easy for them to defend in their block, but you guys need to, obviously bounce back. You've got the international break. So it's one of those ones, like you said, the ladder's so close, but you don't want to start falling behind because then every game becomes a must win. So it's interesting. I think anyone can beat anyone, as we saw again in this round. So you just got to make sure that you're on it really, and that goes into our next one, which was Western Sydney Perth. Did you get to watch any, or were you travelling back? For this one?
I was in the passenger seat. Lockie Wales drove me to the game, so I was watching the game on the way home. And yeah, look, Western Sydney, I thought they looked good. You've got your 2 fullbacks scoring, which is always a good sign because they're bombing on. And I didn't see most of the first half, but when I watched the game back, watching over it, like Tate Russell had a couple of chances, so he could have maybe scored more than 1 goal. But he had a couple of other really good chances, and Western Sydney looked like they did create some good chances that they probably could have done better with. Sometimes the final ball wasn't there. Obviously, there was that passage where Glory hit the post and then Western Sydney went back up the other end and hit the crossbar. But no, I think probably overall, I'd say a fair result, and it's a good result for Western Sydney. It's a clean sheet, which is important, and Rudin would love that. And then 2 goals, and it's your 2 fullbacks scoring, which is, I think so far they've been a team that have had quite a few different goal scorers.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like I don't think Barella's even scored this year, and Thompson maybe one. But it's I think they're looking pretty good, Western Sydney, and it was a game where Perth Glory were a little bit more happy to sit back and probably go on the counter, and they did have some half chances in the first half on the break. The first half was probably 50-50, I would say. Still Western Sydney were dominating, but Perth Glory had their chances. Bruce Kamau went down injured early on, so Kolakowski came on. Taggart was missing. So Perth were missing a couple of players as well, and getting an early injury doesn't help. But yeah, Western Sydney for me looked very, very solid, very comfortable. Brillante and Hendricks in the midfield are very, very solid players. They're not, flashy players. They just keep it simple, keep the ball kind of ticking over. That allows probably your fullbacks in Clisby and Russell to get higher, because you've got your 2 sixes that actually kind of sit in there with your centre backs and can kind of help mitigate the counter attacks. And yeah, like you said, Tate Russell in the first half, he had quite a few chances, whether it was his final ball or choosing to shoot instead. But he's it's pretty special, I guess, for him coming back from a long time out. It was 500 odd days with his ACL before, I think, in between games, and gets his opportunity to play at the start of this season, and he's done really well. So you think if Borello starts banging them in, and Thompson starts banging them in, you've got Ninkovic coming back as well. Them and Victory, I would say, are probably the two most dangerous teams and most consistent teams from the first four or so games anyway. Still early doors, but they've got quality.
They've definitely got quality, Western City, and we saw it when we played them. But yeah, you're right. Like, and you add Marcelo into that, who's a good passer of the ball, and then you've got those 2 sixes, and Borello getting jealous that other people are scoring. He's trying to save them on the line.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I would bet him if that didn't go over the line.
Yeah,
he would have fucking copped it.
It was one of those ones where he just would have been so unlucky. But he's done well enough to kind of arch his back to I guess get the touch on it. But I think it was clearly over the line. So you're pretty happy if you take Russell that it did count, because if it didn't, like you said, Borello would be getting and we'd be getting a word to him afterwards. But yeah, that's all good. Hopefully the crowds as well at the West Sydney, especially at home, start building. I know it was another hot day there and a 5 o'clock kickoff, but the way they're playing, it's actually exciting.
They're been around that 10K mark, which is I think, look, compared to some of the other crowds, it's still good.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone knows the capability of the RBB and Western Sydney, and those early days, I think sort of everyone's sort of dying to see that support come back and that stadium to be full, because it would be an unbelievable atmosphere in that stadium.
Yeah, I think 12 to 15K, on a regular should be their standard, and I think their next game, I don't know whose home game it is the Sydney Derby, so that will be a big one for both those teams. And then we go into the other side of Sydney FC against Adelaide United. New coach, Uffy comes in, as you see everywhere in not even just football, but world sport really. A new coach comes in, and for some reason, the team more than likely they're going to win the game, or at least put in an unbelievable performance. And they couldn't have probably played any better. They could have scored more. Adelaide weren't at the races at all. 5-1 actually made Adelaide look better. But yeah, did you see this game as well?
Yeah, that's just a crazy game, because I was actually speaking to a couple of guys at training today, and I was like, who goes to Coopers and wins 5-1? Like, Coopers is one of the hardest places to go in the A-League, and everyone will say that, because the stadium, the fans, that atmosphere when they start getting behind Adelaide, it's fucking very, very hard place to go and win games. But 5-1 is ridiculous. And obviously you mentioned Uffy coming in. At the end of the day, no one knows
what was going on inside at Sydney FC, and you can't really speculate. You know, sometimes it's actually just the refreshing face to have a new face, a new maybe voice that's dictating the way that we're doing things, and the players respond well to that. You know, you don't know what was going on, but it's a perfect start if you're buzzing, because that team hadn't even scored a goal yet in the league, and they go out and score 5. So we both said Lolly at the start of the year is on his day probably one of the best in the league, and he was fucking unbelievable in that game. Unplayable. He was doing everything, and that's the thing. Like with Sydney FC, that's the star power they've got, and I think that was the most probably surprising thing, and one of the reasons potentially why Corica stepped down, or why Sydney FC kind of, you know, gave him the tap on the back to maybe have a chat, because, you know, they do have the quality in Mac and Lolly and Caceres, Gomez up front. It wasn't clicking, and again, without being in the change room, you can't really speculate on too much, but you do know, as we've been in the situation before, when a new coach comes in, you have to impress every single player. You almost get this like, it's like day one of pre-season almost again, where you're buzzing. You've got this motivation because you know it's a clean slate for everyone. Of course, he's got, you know, ideas on certain players because he's seen you play before, but training's different. And when you see people in training, so the intensity in training's up, everyone's buzzing. That first game, you know, all right, I need to do well. Especially the young boys, you know, if you get a chance when you weren't getting a chance before, all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, I've got to take this chance. And both of them, I think were really, really good. And then you add in Lolly, who was unplayable on the day. And like Adelaide, as good as Sydney were horrible. Well, actually, just first half, they weren't up for the fight. Like Sydney FC pressed them really high, which West Central Coast did last year in the finals, and that's when Adelaide struggled. They just pressed them high, couldn't play out, and then it was just kind of attack after attack, and you know, it was too much in the end when you've got that quality. And then, you know, once you go 4-0, 5-0, it's game over. There's no coming back. Then it's kind of almost just a bit more of a training drill, but you could hear Uffy from the sidelines, as the commentators were saying, he was barking out orders the whole time. So if you're a Sydney FC fan, you'll be wrapped. And if you're the 12,000 odd fans that came out for that game for Adelaide United, you're probably finding it hard to stick around after, you know, the first 40 minutes, because it's not enjoyable to watch your team when they're down by, what was it, 4 goals in the first half, and then straight after half time they score the 5th, and you're thinking, well, I've paid full price to be here. Do I just go across to the pub, or do I stick around? And, you know, fair play, they did stick around. But it's not great going into the international break when you come off a heavy loss. But again, it's early doors, so we'll see how they bounce back in the next game
Against Western United.
So it should be an easy game for my Reds.
We'll see.
Bookmark that. But yeah. So then we the next one, which was the Balls against City, which was pretty, again, the first half, boring. Could have fallen asleep. If I didn't have a good sleep the night before, my whoop told me I did have a good night's sleep. That's probably why I didn't fall asleep watching this one. But then the second half was ridiculous. Like you go from 0-0 to 3-3, and MacArthur probably similar to the Newcastle Jets against you guys. They were happy for City to have possession, no problems. A few counter attacks. The Villa's unbelievable. Everything goes through him in that Bulls team, and you know, they do have the quality with the wingers, with Raphael and Jed Drew on the wings, that they can catch you. And City went up, and then the Bulls obviously scored 3, thinking it's game over, and then City showed this urgency that probably wasn't there the entire game. So yeah, it's funny how it works, but I think it just shows, and you can probably speak to it a bit more, but how even the league is this year.
Yeah, it is super even. It's going to be, we said this sort of from the first week, that if you're off and another team's on, you can get spanked. And we've already seen a few hidings in the league this year. But yeah, even that game, like, look, I think probably Melbourne City had the better of the chances. They could have easily been up, and then all of a sudden it's 85th minute and you're 3-1 down. And I was thinking, MacArthur have done it here. Like, fair play. They've taken their chances, Davila has had that sort of individual class, and they're going to win. And then I think if you're a Bulls player, like it's sort of like, fuck, like that really got away from us, because 85th minute, you shouldn't draw the game from there. And it's obviously, we've been there, you've been in those games where there's sort of momentum and things like that. But for me, there wasn't a whole lot of momentum. I think MacArthur were like, yeah, we're in the driver's seat now. Like, it's going to take something special. And obviously, Jamie McLaren does what Jamie McLaren does, and he popped up. Scotty Galloway got a nice little assist, and then obviously, yeah, just the penalty, and sort of it was written all over Aspro's face, like he was head in hand straight away, because he knew that he's just put his foot out when he shouldn't have. And yeah, it's a disappointing one for MacArthur to not get the 3 points. But on another note, they've started the season unbelievably. Yeah. So I think Milos Jajovski's done really well, and they're also playing those AFC Cup games as well. So it's not easy what they've been having to do. They've traveled a lot. They've played a lot of games, but they're getting results.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we spoke about in preseason. You can't really judge Milos Jajovski on the results last year, because he took over in a tough period, and now they've done really well, because then you got the other, our last game, which is Central Coast against Brisbane. Central Coast haven't won, and they're kind of talking about the AFC, and we've had to play games. Our squad's small. MacArthur's is the exact same, and they've been able to manage well. So it's interesting to see if MacArthur can keep this up. And then going into the last game, we can't speak about it too long, because we've got our special guest, Mitch Duke, who's about to jump on. But Brisbane Roar 2-1, bit of an eventful game. The first goal was controversial. Where was the ball out? Was it not? VAR. I don't think they could overturn it. Similar to the Arsenal Newcastle, like you couldn't clearly say it was out. It looked out, but it wasn't clear and obvious. So you can't do much about it. Then Brisbane score, Central Coast score, they get a penalty. VAR says there's no penalty. Central Coast feels like everything's going against them right now. Then Brisbane get a red card, and then Central Coast get a red card straight after. So it's a tough start to the season for Central Coast. But there's a long time to go. But if you're the new coach, you'd be feeling the pressure.
Yeah. Look, it was always going to be hard, and I think everyone sort of spoke about this before the season about, losing those players, but also losing your coach just before the season, and it's never easy. I think it was, what a week for Central Coast. I think they were traveled back 25 hours from Bali, which I don't even know how it takes 25 hours to get back to Central Coast from Bali. But
they probably missed their flight, because they're all at all at Finn's Beach Club.
I think, they were at Old Man's, I think, after the game. So,
we're trying to win the table, the beer pong tournament.
Yeah, the beer pong tournament. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, your away day in Bali, away days don't get much better than that. Let's be honest.
You've won the game. I'm sure they were out. They have to have been out.
Yeah,
probably being games.
I think they play. I'm not sure where they play. I think it might be in Ubud. So I'm not sure if there's a whole lot going on there. Maybe a yoga retreat or something like that after the game. But on a serious note, like in the game, like it was quite even. I think both teams sort of had their chances. And then when Brisbane get the red card, it's 2-1 at that stage, and you're thinking, all right, perfect, we can sort of get back into it. And then the red card, obviously, for Central Coast, just like really sort of not kills the momentum, but just evens out the playing field again, instead of being able to make the most of that one extra man, you're back to 10v10, and it sort of just, halts everything. And I think if they could have used that extra man, you never know what could have happened in that game. But as it finished, it was 2-1. I wish the VAR on that game was doing our game, because then the bloody goal that I put in for Pena might have stood, but
you're about 1 meter out. Don't even
about 30 centimeters, I reckon. Yeah. I knew it, but I was like, are they actually going to give this? So I just kept quiet.
Yeah.
But
let's wrap it up, because Jukie's here. He doesn't want to give you talk anymore.
Yeah.
So all right. We'll throw it over and welcome Jukie to it. And we've got our second guest on the podcast. It's Mitch Duke, the king of Machida.
I'm not having that name at all. See you, boys.
Welcome, Dukey.
Yeah, it's good to see you, lads. I haven't seen you, Ben, for ages. Haven't caught up with you. Obviously, Morky, I played with you last year. And I've seen you a few times this year when you visited Tokyo. So always a familiar face, which is always good. And to chat about football, which is our lives, basically, isn't it? So,
yeah, exactly. We'll be, I've heard a lot of your stories anyway in the car last year. I couldn't get you to stop speaking, to be honest. So it'll be good that some listeners get to hear them as well now.
Yeah, I won't go too in depth with some of my stories. They'll get me in trouble. But, yeah,
That's how we got you on, Dukey.
Yeah, I can't say too much, to be fair. I've had a wild ride. Obviously, Morky as well. Like, just to go a little bit into the personal stuff. Obviously, I've gone through a divorce and stuff in the last year and a half and stuff. So, and being in a foreign country, as Morky would know, as you would know, also when you played in Scotland, Benny, you do certain things to kind of escape football and certain reality at sometimes as well when you got a lot of free time and that. And I've definitely made some good stories and memories outside of the football world.
I think a book's got to come out. A book's got to come out one day, to be honest. I'll buy it.
Honestly,
the autobiography.
So many lads joke about like me needing to write a book or make a movie about my life, and I think it'll be quite entertaining. I'm not sure what kind of theme would be. I'm not sure if it'd be a drama, comedy.
Bit of everything.
Bit of everything. Actually, it'll be very exciting and entertaining. That's for sure. Roller coaster.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go back to the start then. For the listeners that don't know, you started at Central Coast. We won't go into your early years as a footballer, but talk us through what it was like being a youth team player, earning peanuts up on the coast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To go all the way back, they had obviously the youth systems back then, which was just the younger reserve teams of the first A-League teams. So obviously I played at Central Coast Mariners youth team and would travel away to Adelaide, Melbourne, play those teams there, which was on about, I think it was at that time was $700 a month. And at that time as well, Arnie was the coach, current national team coach, and he actually wanted me to train full-time with the first team as well, which was obviously very difficult to play on $700 a month. Being from Sydney as well, I had to travel up every day and then try and make some sort of income outside of that while I'm trying to make it as a professional, which was fun times. And I think in the process of doing that, I worked about 3 jobs at that time. I worked for Super Cheap Auto. I worked at Bankstown Airport, like 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. I'd go to Central Coast to train. I'd do either a shift at Super Cheap Auto or I'd do a shift as a courier for a freight company in the city. And I did that for a good...
That's fucking up. That's all time.
Yeah, honestly, it was an absolute shift.
You still would have been the bloke at training that had the most energy out of everyone, eh?
Oh, mate, I was living off about 3 energy drinks before training. V was my go-to, mate. It was in my veins at that time. But yeah, honestly, to get by like at that point in time, I look back and I don't know how I did it, to be fair. But for me, actually, like, I never really had anything else to fall back on. So it was kind of like just desperation times chasing that dream to become a professional footballer because I didn't have anything else. By the time I was actually getting to coming up to my 21st birthday, I just become golden boot in the youth league, and Arnie didn't give me another contract. He gave actually Bernie Abini a contract ahead of me at that time. And I was like, on my last legs, I think as a youth player, you can only play up to like 21. And I was coming up to my 21st birthday. So I was like, oh, the dream's coming to an end. And I started to actually become an apprentice electrician. And I got 10 months into that. And then Arnie gave me the lifeline of giving my contract literally on my 21st birthday, which was just good because I didn't want to be a Sparky. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And that's what I mean. I think that's probably helped become, I guess, who I am and how I play. I'm not the prettiest of players, as you both know, but I kind of don't give up and high energy and it's basically comes into, I don't have anything else. I've never really been good at anything else. And I think that's like kind of what made me, I guess, make it and probably stay as consistent and in the game as long as I have, especially away from the A-League, which is very difficult playing abroad overseas. I think I'm coming on to over 7 years now in Asia. Very competitive, very difficult. So, yeah, I can't. I look back now, I can't believe I got through that time. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how things have panned out now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, I guess, similar to what we were speaking about on last week's episode, is the second division coming in, and we were kind of having that discussion of if the players need to be professional, semi-professional, and I think that desperation that you just talked about with knowing that this was everything for it, I think that's why it's better if you can get these players into a full-time environment so they see, and if they have to work a second job outside to survive, look at what it's done for yourself and plenty of players, I'm sure, overseas as well. But yeah, you touched on the way you play, and that makes a player knowing that if you don't perform, if you don't get a contract, or you don't get a jump from the second division to the first division by a certain time, you can't survive. And I think that's it's an unbelievable story, and something I'm sure in the tough times you look back on the thing. I'm grateful that I kind of stuck with it, and it's really, really exciting. And then from Central Coast, you started playing. When was it your debut, and how did that go?
Oh God, I can't remember the exact date or anything, but I know I was obviously in the youth team, and it's actually mental how I got my opportunity. I flew up on the day of the game because I wasn't in the squad, but I think his name was Perez. We had a number 10 at that time named Perez, and he sneezed and blew a disc out in his back. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. And I got the call basically being like, can you fly up to the Gold Coast? I was in my super cheap auto kit, like ready to do a shift. And they actually said, like, can you fly up to be on the bench for the game tonight against Gold Coast United? And of course I was like, yeah, like stuff super cheap. Like I'm ready to go. And then I think Arnie kind of made the promise being like, I'm not just flying you up. I'm going to give you a chance off the bench at some point. Be ready when I got there. And yeah, I think I played about 20 or 30 minutes off the bench and scored off the bench on my debut, which was awesome. We won, I think, 3-0 or 3-1 against Gold Coast that day. And yeah, special moment that was, because I was still a youth player at that time. So to get that opportunity was massive. And I still didn't get a contract after that. It took a year after that to get my contract. But I think that's like what you touched on there as well. It's about the second league, second division. I think the thing about that is it's all about opportunities as well. It's just creating more opportunities for players to be exposed into that world of football, to show themselves. And I think that's where you lack in the A-League. I think at times we've obviously only had like a 10-team league. It's not enough opportunities for boys out there that, like, you've got 23 players, professional players to a team with only 10 teams to kind of show yourself. It's very hard to come by opportunities. And for me, that I feel like I saw that as my opportunity to kind of show myself, and lucky enough, scored off the bench and got my opportunity later on as well, more to get my contract. But I'm excited about what's coming for Australian football, especially with that second division. And I actually heard you speak about it, Benny, as well, when you said the difference was when you played in Scotland was the promotion relegation aspect of the game. And I think that's massive. And you've experienced that as well, Morky. And like here, like even in J2, people might be like, oh, it's J2, blah, blah, blah. But it's so competitive. There's 22 teams trying to go to J1 or stay alive by the end of the season. And there's no easy games when it comes to those kind of things, because everyone's desperate to either stay up or get promotion or make it into the playoffs. Because, there's a lot more at stake with promotion and relegation as well, because people's livelihoods, contracts, salaries can go up and down. If you get relegated, your contract could be halved. So that's people's livelihoods and families financially going to be affected and everything like that. So I think it just adds a different aspect to the game, way more competitive, more intensity. And just the competitiveness side of things is just different level, I think. And I think Australia will only benefit from that once it gets, obviously, the ball rolling there.
Yeah, we are a long way behind. Look, we have to hold our hands up and say that we are a long way behind countries in Europe, even, countries like Japan, how built up the football leagues are over there. It's unbelievable. And you two obviously know better than me, J2, the standard of it, and how competitive it is. And then you look at J1 as well, and that's another step again. So We are behind in that, and I think it's just about bridging the gap and hopefully getting to a point where we can start to bring that closer. And I think the day that we do see promotion relegation is going to be a very exciting day for football in our country. And, you know, it might not be when any of us are still playing, but hopefully it is sometime in the near future. But talk to us a little bit about sort of your breakout. So obviously you had that year away, and then you did end up getting the contract. At that time, Central Coast Mariners was kind of the place to be. If you were a young player in the A-League, obviously there were a lot of people who you would have played with that ended up going on and getting moves and, you know, playing within the national team and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about that time at the Mariners, and then also sort of your first move to Japan as well.
Yeah, to be fair, it was very turbulent for me. You know, it was obviously a long wait to get that contract. But after I got that first professional contract, my first year as a professional, we became champions with the Central Coast Mariners, obviously playing with some players that are still in the Socceroos setup or have been a Socceroo and a mainstay at one point, you know, with the Rodgiks, the Matt Ryans, the Bernie Abinis, Trent Sainsbury's. We've had, obviously, Nick Montgomery was there as well, who's, you know, transitioned to being a coach, great player and coach. You know, a lot of big names there at that time in my first year, becoming a champion, and then getting my first Socceroos call up actually under Holger Osick at that time at the end of that season as well. So it did go to 0 to 100 for me, and that set the platform of probably either, like, I would say expectation and pressure as well, which then, funny enough, a lot of people would say I had second year syndrome after that because I didn't live up to probably the expectation that I'd built that from the success that we had at the Mariners. And that was just another experience, another challenge that you have to get used to as well as a professional, you know, to back it up and be consistent. That's always a hard thing for youngsters. And for me, in my first year as a professional, that was the biggest challenge for me, was to try and back it up. And I wouldn't say I did that in the second year. We still had a good year at Mariners that second year under Phil Moss. We finished in second or third, but I only scored, I think, 3 goals that year. It was a really frustrating time for me. I wasn't playing just out and out striker. I was playing as a winger, but still should have done a lot better from my own standards from the year before. But I think for me, like, they've all just been stepping stones and learning curves for me to become a better player from those experiences. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? So for me, it was probably a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I had so much success. I experienced all the highs so early, and then got brought back down to reality pretty quickly in the second year about the struggles of when you go for a certain amount of games, not scoring goals, or we're not winning, or, you know, there's that expectation and that pressure, which I struggled to deal with. And for me also, like, I'll go back to then as well. I was I'm a bit of a loose cannon in general. A lot of people will know that if they know me personally and they've played with me. I was going through a lot at the time as well. I was young, going through a bit of a on and off relationship, and that ended up in a pregnancy as well. I've got a 10-year-old from that experience. So my life was very chaotic while trying to become a professional, like trying to make a name as a professional footballer outside of that. And not too many people know all these details about me and all that. So the way I managed it was a little bit also chaotic off the pitch, as a distraction and as a release. I'd either be going out for drinks to bars and stuff like that as my little escape, while then probably having training the next day. And going a little bit wild. So I wouldn't say I was the perfect role model at certain times during my professional career, but for me, it was my way of finding balance, whether or not it was right or wrong. But it was a crazy first couple of years being probably introduced to the professional game as a footballer, but still got through it, which I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, and I think it's something that, you know, everybody on the outside, they just see the performance on the weekend. They don't see training. They don't see what you're doing in your own personal life. Now with social media, it's a little bit different. You can kind of see a bit more, but it's still, you know, they don't know what's going through the player's head, the struggles of, you know, just even like you said, the expectation, the standards now, being a professional footballer now that all of a sudden you've performed at a certain level. Everyone expects that, and you expect it of yourself. So then you struggle with that, but then you add in, you know, issues off the field that, you know, you get onto the football field, and if you don't have a clear head, it's extremely tough to perform. So it's yeah, it's always good, I think, for the people at home to think, maybe if a player is struggling, maybe there's something more to it, and it's never through lack of trying. That's definitely not the case that I've seen in any players. So yeah, I guess you had those first couple years, you kind of got through that, which, like you said, 0 to 100, and then back down to reality. And then how did the move to Japan come about? The first move, obviously, there was a lot of players like Ben touched on that were getting moves. Was Europe something that you wanted to try first, or did Japan just come up before anything over in Europe kind of materialized?
Yeah, funny enough, actually, obviously Europe, I think any young Australian will probably say their dream is to make it into Europe, in the top 5 leagues of Europe, as their dream, to give it a chance, test themselves out against the best. I had that actually straight after that season, like I said, 0 to 100. Before I actually had my first Socceroos selection, I went to West Ham in the Premier League on a 1-week trial under Sam Allardyce. They flew me over for a week trial because they watched some of my games and they were monitoring me a little bit. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I don't know how that came about. And then
I've gone from fucking super cheap auto to West Ham.
Mate, yeah, like within 10 months, I've gone from super cheap auto, like working at Bankstown Airport, and then now I'm standing next to Andy Carroll in the change room. Absolute beast.
That's fucking mad.
And yeah, no, and then obviously like that was a experience all in itself. Actually, I don't know why. I probably didn't have the right guidance at that time. I don't know why I did that, because I couldn't actually sign in England at the time. I couldn't play there because of the sponsorship passports and the visa situation. And I wasn't a current national team player that had played enough. I think the rule was over 75% over 2 years to get that kind of, I think it's a sponsorship visa or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, great experience all in itself as well. But yeah, like just another thing to add to the experience that I felt like kind of it brings you back down to reality, shows you kind of what the level is at and what you need to get to and how much you need to improve. So I look back at those kinds of times. That was brilliant. But at the same time, for me, coming out of my whirlwind situation outside of football, the financial side was always also a big factor for me. I'd come from a family of 9 kids, didn't have much, kind of just like paycheck to paycheck within that kind of era. So like for me, I had the European dream, but then I heard a J-League club was coming to watch a couple of my games at Central Coast. We were really in a little bit of a dip, and I knew they were just coming to watch 2 games. And for me, again, when I talk about opportunities, I think it's just so important. Like you get certain opportunities in life, in football, and certain occasions, and it's if you grab it and you take that chance or not. And for me, those 2 games they came and watched, I scored a double against Melbourne Heart at the time, and I got a winning assist against Adelaide. The 2 games they came and watched.
We got to pull you up on the Melbourne City one, and this is something that you wouldn't even know, and it's funny. It's got nothing to do with it, but this is how football is so funny. So you tell it, Ben.
Yeah, so we actually, I think that was that Asian Cup year, and we had the little break. Was that year? Well, there was something. I know we played a few days after New Year's, wasn't it? It was a few days after New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
that was the Asian Cup. I think it was an Asian Cup or something that was coming up. So we
had New Year's off, and then I think we were playing you guys on like the 3rd or the 4th, so fairly close to New Year's. Anyway, as it was, the boys thought, the coach said, it was JVS at the time. He goes, no one's to go out New Year's. So us being fucking 18, 19-year-old kids, we went and booked a booth at the Prince in St Kilda. Went out, had a top night. There was like 10 of us there, 12 of us from the team, all the younger boys. And then a few days later, we rock up to Central Coast, and we're thinking, should be a good game, should pocket them, no worries. And big Ross Archibald was playing centre back. I think, was it his debut?
It was his first game, and he was on a youth contract similar to what you were. And this is where you talk about moments and taking your moment. And this was his first start, youth team player, good opportunity, just gone out a few nights before, probably not the smartest thing, but I don't think he realized he was going to start. And then go on.
Yeah, and then obviously, you scored a double.
didn't you? And we got sent packing. We all of us young boys fucking copped it.
I got Tander.
told you-
Tander got a red card as well because I was through for my hat trick and he took me out.
So we all copped it, and it's just funny. Like as you say, it's about opportunity, taking opportunity when it's there. Obviously, this Japanese club was there watching you. Obviously, Roscoe was on the other side. Like he was thinking, "Come first game, like should be a good game," and then you've gone and scored a double. So like it's just funny how it can go either two ways. But obviously, I'm good mates with Roscoe. He's a top lad, and basically after all these years, we wanted to say like. You got to give Roscoe a little percentage, man, of your income because
He's had a beast. He's had a beast.
You didn't get that move, bro. Your career didn't go the way that it has.
So he helped me get my J League deal.
Yeah. Basically, he got you.
Thanks, Ross.
Get
Thanks,
him
Ross, for
two
going out.
tickets. 2 tickets this upcoming Socceroos game. He lives in Melbourne, I think, still now as well.
Mate,
So
honestly, tell him to send me a DM. I'll sort him out. Sorry, mate.
No, he's a legend. And then obviously. So the next game, what happened? The next game?
Yeah, we won 2-1 against Adelaide, and I gave Josh Rose like an 85th minute assist, something around there. And so, like within the 2 games, they watched me. They saw me score 2 goals. Could have had a hat trick and as well get an assist, and then had the deal lined up, ready to. They signed up before they left, and I was absolutely buzzing because I know of what I've heard. The J League has always had a reputation of being, if not the best league in Asia, one of. So for me, it was a dream move, and for me, outside of that, the personal stuff I was going through that stuff like dealing with expecting a child in a tough situation. Not being a part in an actual relationship, just being young and thinking my life was flashing before my eyes and not ready for stuff like that. And then I had the opposite side of effect of like getting dream opportunity to sign in the J League and the financial side of things. I was in debt while I was playing for Central Coast Mariners. So for me, that I was able to clear my debt after 1 month's salary in Japan when I arrived. And I was like, people like, certain decisions is what, depending on like what people's situations are, you can't judge players if you don't know what their situation is of why they're making certain decisions on, especially on contracts or moves. You know, I'm sure it's always an educated decision by a lot of players, and they're ticking off certain boxes of why they're making that move. And for me, I've always had a little checklist of 3 things. I'd always like to think football level is going to be up there, the financial side of things and the lifestyle side of things. That's what I'd always try to tick off. And if I could tick off 2 of those 3, I'm happy. Although didn't realize how important the lifestyle side of things was until I moved to Saudi. And when I moved to Saudi, that was not the lifestyle for me, with me being a bit of a social butterfly and getting out and about every now and then. It didn't suit me, especially being on my own. I need an outlet. I need an escape. And Saudi didn't have any of that. So all learning experiences and all part of the journey. But yeah, for me, I think all those experiences you start to figure out, especially when you start to become a bit of an older head, who you are as a person, what you like, what you dislike, what situation you want to put yourself into. And you make certain decisions based on those things and those experiences, where obviously when you're younger, like Ross, even making that decision, he's just been excited about the hype of being involved with the boys, and he probably got carried away, not expecting that certain situations can happen, and unfortunately paid the price a little bit the next day.
Big Dukey's bagged the double.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. I've got the reputation in Japan now, thanks to him.
I reckon if Roscoe had his time again, he would have still been there with the lads on the night out.
Yeah.
So,
Mate,
fair play
I'm
to
guilty of
Roscoe.
that more times than probably I've said yes more than I've said no. So
Yeah. So you spent like a good chunk, I think people, again, that, now me being involved over here in Japan in J2 anyway, you see how big football is here and how good the quality is. And for someone like yourself, you spent, what was it, 3 or 4 years firstly at S-Pulse?
4 years, yeah.
4 years. Like that's unbelievable to keep getting contract after contract. They can get foreigners, they can pay them top dollar. So for you to survive that long of a period of time and now also come back again shows that you've built a pretty good reputation here. What was, I guess, your first, in that first season, I guess the adjustment period when you first came, was it the standard was that much higher than the A-League, the language, the culture? What were the things that, stick out to you most?
Mate, to be fair, it was all those things. I'd gone from the Central Coast to a squad of 23, and then probably you'd say 13, 14 proper like seasoned professionals, to then a squad of 35 in Shimizu S Pulse, obviously top class Japanese players as well as top class foreigners. And I definitely felt out of my depth for the first 6 weeks with the intensity in training, the how long training was, the technicality side was just different levels from what I was used to in the rondos and stuff. I was chasing shadows, and I had a touch of a donkey as well, which didn't help. So for me, it was a big adjustment. I still do, but yeah. So like for me, it was that, and then obviously the cultural side of things, getting used to be doing training and games through a translator. You can't have firsthand communication with the coach. You got to speak through someone else. Learning training drills through someone else, like secondhand information, and you just got to clock on to stuff like that. All that's an experience, and then obviously the lifestyle side of things outside of that. The first few weeks of being in Japan, I was calling my translator to fill up my car with petrol because I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't communicate to the person that was doing it, and I was like, just the little things you don't even take, you don't not necessarily take for granted, but you just can't. You're very, very useless in certain scenarios, like getting a haircut. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't fill up my car.
Is that still happening now with the haircut? Is that why your haircut's so shit?
Yeah. I'm just growing my hair out now, looking like a used tennis ball. I've only got a few haircuts left, mate. Leave me alone. Stress.
Don't worry, brother. We're all there.
Nah, you boys are strong.
I'll give you some of mine. Benny's on the Ashley and Martin. Ashley and Martin, if you're listening, sponsor the podcast.
Yeah. No, honestly.
So you've been there that many years now, though. Like you wouldn't have any of those issues now. You've surely learnt Japanese now, surely.
Yeah, I've still been pretty lazy with it, but I can kind of get away now. And at least I can say in Japanese, if I can't, I used to just be like, I can't speak Japanese, but they still couldn't understand that in English. But now I'll be like, Nihongo wakaranai. So that's like, I can't speak Japanese, or I don't really understand Japanese. So for me, I can at least communicate certain bits, or I can be like, I can speak it a little bit, and they just be basic with me, and I can understand enough now after being here for 6.5 years. So, which is good. I can get a haircut now safely.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It's funny. It's actually funny. I was speaking to someone just the other day about that exact same thing. Our Caravella's football academy was here, and I caught up with them, and I was saying the same thing, like literally filling up a car. Like when you first get here, it's something so small, but you can't do it. And you kind of like feel like such an idiot because you don't know. You go to the shop, same thing. I don't know. I think this is fucking what I'm trying to get. It might be chicken, but it might be something else. Like you just don't know. And then it's something that people, again, you don't think about when you're making the move exactly, but to survive in a foreign country, there's that added kind of pressure and added kind of out of your comfort zone, which is a lot of respect to someone like yourself who's lasted so long here. Now onto your third team. But before we go into the promotion, we'll talk a little bit more about you then getting back into the Socceroos. I think, you came back to the A-League in between that and were on fire for West Sydney. We don't need to touch on that too much because you guys were a shambles back then anyway. But you were on fire personally, and then you got back into the Socceroos. So was that something like a dream of yours always to get back in there?
Yeah, funny enough, like got to the point where in my relationship at the time with that 4 years, because obviously I wasn't just focusing on myself in that 4 years. I had a partner during that period of time, and actually she was struggling with the lifestyle situation in Japan. And so, we made that collective decision to actually go back to Australia because we needed the lifestyle change and just to refresh and get back to enjoying life outside of football and things like that. Because it's obviously, when people get into relationships, you're not just thinking about yourself. If you've got a young family or a partner who makes that sacrifice to go with you, they're also dealing with those lifestyle changes and challenges as well. So at that time, funny enough, I made the decision to go back to Australia, which I knew I was scared about because I was scared to go back to Australia and then be stuck there for the rest of my career. And that's obviously always a chance because, you never know if you're going to hit the ball, hit the ground running again when you go back. Because A-League's not no easy feat. A-League's competitive, A-League's tough. You've got to do really well to get back out of it. So I did set myself that challenge. I signed 1.5 years at Wanderers, and I said in that 1.5 years, I just need to make sure I make a big statement again, get my name back out there, get back to enjoying lifestyle which will then I know complement my football, and then get another move abroad after we've had that little refresh mentally for the lifestyle side of things. And thankfully, it doesn't always work out, but when you set yourself targets, this time I was very lucky enough to tick all those boxes and make that happen to get that move abroad again.
Yeah, I've heard about your little buddy group with O'Doherty, Dill McGowan, and Coxon.
Yeah, we had a nice little crew there. I was obviously loving being back home as well, which probably turned myself into a little bit of a loose cannon again. I go up and down with these kind of moments.
It's a trend, isn't it?
It's a trend. It is a trend. I think that's one thing I lack is control. So you can't expose me to too much excitement, otherwise I'll get carried away.
Yeah. So on the Socceroos, obviously you've got the upcoming game this week in Melbourne, but for something that, again, being a player, you see everything that people kind of say or what they write, and I didn't know you personally until I came here to Japan. But I really want to touch on it because I saw, the hate, let's say, you were getting before the World Cup. In the qualifiers, there was a lot of pressure on Arnie. For whatever reason, some fans just don't like a player. And I feel like when they start saying stuff, then other ones just jump on the bandwagon. They probably don't even watch the game. They probably don't even understand football, but they feel like they've got a right to kind of hammer this person. And I got nothing wrong. You know what? We get paid money to play football, so they have a right to say whatever. That's their call. No worries. But yeah. I was like, when I got here to Japan, I'm like this guy cops it a lot, and he's a good player. Like, you were on fire in the A-League. You come to Japan. You were doing well in the Socceroos. You're getting picked. Of course, you're not going to say to Arnie, "Oh, listen, Arnie, I'm not going to play this weekend," because the people on Twitter they're smashing me and saying how shit I am. But the resilience, I guess, that I want to touch on from it, for you to be able to handle that, for all the, I guess, the stuff that you were going through. You then go to the World Cup, and then getting ready, like you touched on, moments. Football's all about moments. And in the first game, obviously, you lost to France. And thanks for sorting me out with some tickets as well for the World Cup games. Then the second game comes, and what a moment. I was actually sitting with your family, rock up to the game, everyone's buzzing. Cross comes in, and you've just, obviously scored
the receiving hairline helped me out.
The most memorable goal. And then to celebrate, like you said, the sacrifices, everything you kind of give up with, time with your family, to then be able to celebrate with your son or with your whole family, but do the celebration with your son. Just talk us through a little bit of, the hate that you're getting. Did that affect you? And then that special moment that you got to share with the whole country, but especially with your family there in the stadium.
Yeah, mate, honestly, to be fair, I look back and I laugh as well, because I did feel like there was a time where I was probably maybe even a bit of a scapegoat. I was that targeted man, being like, I think because of maybe the stigma I had on me, the way I playing in J2 as well, people probably felt like, there's players playing in better leagues more regularly and things like that as well. Like I said, it's all opinions, and everyone's entitled to their opinion for sure. But the main ones that matter is the head coach. He's the one making those selections. And then it's up to you as a player to repay that faith and belief if they give you the job to be the starting player and help the nation. For me, obviously, you have moments where no matter what, I think I even had times where my mum was sending me screenshots being like, these guys were sending such hateful messages, being like, he's shit, he's this, he's that. Why is he getting selected? Like, he shouldn't be anywhere near the national team and blah, 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 whatever. Like, for me, I think as well, yourself, who you are, from my experiences, maybe it would have affected me in my first couple of years as a young player, seeing that kind of stuff. But for me as well, I just know in my head, the opinions that matter are the ones that are within the football world, the ones that are making the big decisions, like the coaches, the coaching staff. And as long as you feel like you're at that level with your teammates and you don't feel out of your depth, I had that belief in myself to be able to get the job done. I had moments where I was feeling the pressure, because it is a little bit scary, knowing that I was being the main man chosen in that Peru match to qualify for the World Cup in that playoff was nerve-wracking, knowing that everything's on the line. You're the leading man. The leading man's expected to do the big things and score the goals and win the games. Didn't do that. We went to penalties, but I know Arnie expects so much more of me outside of the goal-scoring aspect, which is why he likes me with the way the national team is set up and how we play. And then we got pumped by France in the first game. I was thinking actually that was my World Cup campaign finished. And again, then he gave me that belief. He actually gave me a little bit of a battering after that game, because after 20 minutes against that France juggernaut, I felt like I was chasing shadows in that first 20 minutes. And I actually looked at Arnie because he was yelling out to me to do more. And I like waved my hands up. And I was like, oh no, like Arnie's called me out on that as well. He's like, mate, like that's such a negative attitude. You don't need to do that. Just, you have a job, just do it, kind of thing. And when he battered me a little bit after the game, I was like, oh shit, that's me done. But then he's like, mate, I just need you to like get that negative mindset out of you. I need you again for Tunisia. And for me, that probably actually helped me a lot. I was like, how much belief he had in me, and I really want to repay that. And I mean, the rest is history with that game. I was just so happy to take that moment, because, you know, it's about big moments in games and taking it. And for me, lucky enough, everything worked out. I'll probably try that header 100 more times. I'm not hitting it how I did. I'm hitting it either straight to the goalkeeper or missing the target. But it worked out in that moment, and that's all that matters. And then to be able to share in probably what I would say is the biggest and most special moment in my career was to share that celebration with my boy, just grasping all of what you just said, all the sacrifices I had made, going through a divorce, being away from my kids, missing them grow up and all their milestones. And the only reason you're doing that is to play the sport that you love, but at the same time, you're setting up their futures. And that's the only reason you're making that sacrifice, is to make that money to give them a better life, while probably at the detriment of your self-happiness at times when you're isolated and lonely in a country abroad you probably won't live in, but you're there to make enough money to help your family. And when I was able to share in that moment, and I always say credit to the cameraman who made that moment happen as well. It was panning to me, panning to my son. To be able to share in that moment was I would say one of the most memorable times in my career. And I'm so thankful and happy that, again, Arnie played a huge role in that belief. And for me, I saw a thing the other day, actually. I feel quite proud, actually, to say throughout all that, I know I still get hate. I saw again, I got now announced today in the national team setup. I still see people be like, I'm sick of Duke. I'm sick of seeing Duke. Like, maybe people hate my face. I don't know. But I was like people just forget now, like everything's done at the World Cup, and now they want young-blooded strikers, which is to blood in young strikers and stuff like that, which is fine. And for me, like, I don't want to get in the way of that, but if I feel like I can still do a job, the coaching staff still think I can do a job, I'm going to put my hand up to help the nation, because I still feel like I can do the job. You know, and I have the backing of my teammates, I have the backing of the coaching staff, and that's all I need. And I'll never get in the way of, like, if there's players doing more, I know Arnie's going to give them that chance. Right now, he knows I can do the job that he asks of the striker, because it's a lot more than the attacking side of things with Arnie's style. But funny enough, I saw this thing. What I'm going to get back to is, it was like, funny enough, like, who would have thought Duke would probably be the leading man in one of our most successful times in our history? Really, we had our most successful World Cup campaign. Finished as higher rank. We broke some records in the process of, and probably during a very tough time during the COVID things. We played only probably like 2 or 3 games at home out of 20 during those qualifying processes. We won 11 games straight during that, broke that record. You know, and, you know, I've been a big part of that, and I can look back and be proud of that. I was the top scorer during that World Cup qualifying campaign. You know, so I do think a little bit of the hate is probably not completely warranted, but you take it on the chin and you laugh about it, and you just be like, you know what, that's their opinion. I might not suit their style. They like someone that's, you know, a bit more exciting, like Aaron Kunda now, because I'm buzzing to see Yengi. I think he's a huge prospect as well, and I'm glad to see him get selected into the national team. So for me, I'm excited to see what the young boys can do. But right now, if I feel up to it, they're competing with me, I'm competing with them. And that's how it is.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's quality. We'll go into, we've gone a little bit over because it's been great to hear about what you're...
Like I said, I speak too much, mate.
No,
we knew this chat was going to be... We weren't going to be short of anything to talk about.
This could have been part 1 of about 100, I think. You know, we can do a whole Netflix series on it.
Yeah.
But
haven't even got into nightlife scenery yet.
Yeah, we got to do the night out part 2.
Yeah, we'll do that after. Once you've won the Asian Cup, we'll get you back on. So
Yeah, true. Don't want
we'll
to
go in. Yeah, we'll go into the questions.
Football Friends with Ben and Steph is proudly brought to you by the Inner Game Journals, started by none other than our co-host Stephen Moore. The Athlete Performance Journals were created to help athletes of all abilities become more self-aware through goal setting and reflection. On or off the field, the mental side of the game is so crucial to help you feel and perform at your best. Head over to www.theinnergamejournals.com and use code FootballFriends to get 15% off all products. If you're a club, school or academy, you're in luck. Stefan also runs workshops and he's just released the app version, which will allow you to give direct feedback to players. Download the app for free today. Search The Inner Game on the App Store.
I'll go with the first one, Ben, and then you can read out the second one. So the
Yeah, no
first one, at A-League times, can we see you back in the A-League anytime?
In the dream world, I'd love to finish my footballing career in the A-League, to finish off where I started. Obviously, in the country that I'm from, I would love to go back and finish. But again, football's very, very unpredictable, and I'm not sure what my future holds. Right now, just being promoted to J1, and that's where my motivation lies, is to give it another crack in J1, and see where it takes me.
Yeah, good. Would you
Where are you-
would you want to go to Wanderers or the Mariners?
Yeah, that was my question.
You know what? Open book.
Yeah.
Well, open checkbook.
Yeah. Open the checkbook as well.
Well, he's not going to the Mariners then.
Nah, well, to be honest, like for me, in the ideal world, actually, I would love to go back to Mariners, because I really enjoyed the lifestyle there, and I think that's where I'd probably want to be by that time, in a few more years, to be a bit more settled. And I had probably a little bit of a time where when I left Wanderers for Saudi, probably ended a little bit not on greatest of times. And I've done Wanderers twice now. I went back there on loan, so I don't know if that's played out a little bit now as well, but we'll see. You just never know what kind of opportunities present themselves, and I'll be open to challenges. I've always been open to, I want to live in Melbourne or even Brisbane, so we'll see.
I'll get on the blower about Western United.
Yeah, there we go.
Just give me 5%, Juki.
Yeah, happy days, mate. Happy days.
Then you two, Ross Archibald, can go out for a drink.
Yeah. Mate, it sounds like I owe him a big night out. I'm willing to do it as well.
Next question, at Chizo16. Your form is getting better later into your career. What are the key factors you put this down to?
I think a big part of what we've spoken about is it's just all the experiences, figuring out who you are as a player, what your strengths are, and how you play. And I just play to those, to be honest. I don't try to do anything outside of the box, and it might not be pretty and what people are like. Because for me, I'm not a dribbler. I'm very basic. It's kind of like a hold up, bounce the ball kind of thing, high energy, and get in the box and be a menace. And that's just helped me get the opportunities that I have and the reputation I've got here in Japan in the national team and everything. I think that's just what I stick to. I don't try to do anything outside of the box, because I know I'm going to make a fool out of myself if I start trying to do step overs or something like that. So for me, it's just simple as that. It's just knowing who you are, and it's just all the experiences that mentally, because that's a huge part as well. The mental side of things is being able to motivate yourself and handle any scenario that's been thrown at you with big games, big pressure moments. For me, I'm just always got that same level head, and just know I approach every game the same way. And that helps me probably stay consistent over the last few years and have gotten better with that.
You can't. So you're telling me you can't do a step over, but you can do the splits on a corner flag.
Yeah, that's what I mean, mate. I've got the agility. I've got the flexibility. I haven't got the agility. I'll do my knee if I do another step over.
I think it's I guess, like you touched on before as well, with still being involved in the Socceroos, because your form is so good. Age, of course, getting young players through is important, and you do, for that next cycle of the World Cup. But who's to say, with the way technology is, sports science, if your body's in good nick and maybe you reduce it from 5 nights out a week to 3 nights out, you might play till you're 40. Who knows?
Honestly, I actually get scared to think about, what, if I actually was completely fully professional, I could be a lot better. Nah, but for me, like I feel like I'm like I'd compare myself to like a lower level Jack Grealish. I like to enjoy myself,
Yeah.
and I think that's fair. And I think the main thing is, as long as you're doing a job on the football pitch, don't pay attention to what he's doing outside of the pitch. None of your business.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their different ways of coping. One person might say, you know what, if I don't do everything right, then I know on the weekend I'm going to be thinking about that and I'm not going to be able to perform my best. Other people might say, you know what, if I'm enjoying my life, then that's when I'll play my best. So I was like that. When I was younger, I was always like, no, I can't do this. I remember the night before the game when we were at Melbourne City, Bruno Fonioli was eating hot chips and he was going, just fucking have one. You're still going to play shitter than me tomorrow anyway. And I was like, fucking hell, this guy's eating hot chips and he's scoring a hat trick and I'm fucking going out there shitting myself. So, so everyone does their preparation a little bit differently, and whatever you're doing at the moment seems to be working for you. So I wouldn't listen to what anyone says. I just keep going about your business. Coming up with, obviously, the next Socceroos game, you guys are versing Bangladesh. For the people that are saying that you shouldn't be picked, surely there's a hat-trick incoming for Juki in this next game.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the next one?
Yeah, 100%, mate. Like, I'm actually excited. Like, we're starting another, qualifying campaign for the 2026 World Cup. So, and for me, I'm very happy to still be involved. Actually, with my 10 goals that I've got for the national team, I've not scored any of them on home soil. So, I'm finding those extra bits of motivation for me. I know it's going to be a Bangladesh. Not that you take any game lightly, but there's going to be obviously opportunities for myself there to score goals, and definitely a hat trick incoming for me. So I'm going to try and call it out now. That's my expectation, and that's please don't scuff them now. Please don't scuff them. For me, like that's going to be, because it's also like then we're building up into the Asian Cup as well. So these two qualifying games in November, and then that's also coming into the preparation for the Asian Cup, and we're expecting big things for this tournament. So for me, I want to make sure I can put my hand up in these qualifiers to be, again, the main man potentially for the Asian Cup. So, and that's just about, if I get my opportunity against Bangladesh, I'm going to punish my chances when I get them, and hopefully it's going to be a very, very clinical game for us.
Yeah, it's a big one. I think, people always like to talk about, when you're playing the lower teams in Asia, that it's going to be easy, how many goals. But, they're fighting for a World Cup spot. And anywhere in football, no matter what league you're playing in, no matter what the game is, if you're scrapping for something that's so important, they would do anything. So, you got to make sure that obviously, you have that same mentality. And then going, probably for more of the younger players, let's say, that have come into this camp, for the listeners out there, who's been some players over the last, 6-9 months since the World Cup, let's say, that have impressed you, and you think will go on to have, really successful careers?
Yeah, I could rattle off a lot, to be honest. So many have impressed me. Conor Metcalf, most recently, he's really impressed me. He's the complete package, and I didn't realize until the last camp, actually, he's got an absolute leap on him as well. So he can be a threat at headers. But he's an athlete, he's composed, he's got technique, good decision-making, good judgment on like where to be on the pitch. And he's got a great shot on him as well. I think,
and he would definitely join you for a night out as well.
Yeah, he's a good boy. He's one of the boys for sure.
He's a legend.
He's an absolute legend. And to be fair, a lot of the boys are, to be honest. And I'd say him. I'd say Riley McGree. He's a seasoned pro already, and people probably don't even realize how young he still is. I got him, Keanu Bacchus in the recent camp, Sakati, the centre back. He's already a Rolls Royce at the age of 20, I think he is. Very, very impressive, and big things to come for him. And Silvera as well. He's really impressed me as well. For me, a lot of the young boys that I've played with actually in the Olympics that have transitioned now into the Socceroos, it's so good to see, because they're the future, and they're going to be in this national team setup for 10 years, and Australia's in safe, good hands.
Yeah. No, I think that's everything. If you want to wrap it up, Ben, and tell everyone where they can find us on our socials. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming, Juki. As we said, all the best for these next games, and also the Asian Cup. I hope that you can silence all the critics and bag a few more
for the country, and hope that you get your first on home soil. So thank you very much for joining the ep. For everyone at home that enjoyed listening to this, so we can keep getting superstars on like Mitch Duke, make sure you follow and subscribe. We're at footballfriendspod on Instagram, and we are at benandstefpod on X. So make sure to follow us and stay up to date with all the latest episodes. Thank you, guys.
Fuck you lot, where's the beer?